How does hatred grow? How does it move from whispers in cafes to laws signed in ink to trains packed with families who will never return? The Holocaust did not begin with gas chambers. It began with ideas. And to understand how 6 million Jews were murdered, we must ask a difficult question. Where did Adolf Hitler's hatred come from, and how did it become state policy? This is not just the story of one man. It is the story of fear, humiliation, propaganda, and the terrifying power of belief. Before the dictator, the young man without a future. Before he was Führer, before the salutes and the rallies, Adolf Hitler was a struggling young man in Vienna. He wanted to be an artist. Twice he applied to the Academy of Fine Arts. Twice he was rejected. He drifted through the city, selling postcards, sleeping in hostels, nursing quiet resentment. But Vienna at the turn of the 20th century was more than elegant buildings and classical music. It was a city filled with political tension, ethnic diversity, and rising nationalism. Jews were highly visible in business, journalism, medicine, and the arts. And in that atmosphere, anti-Semitism was not hidden. It was spoken openly in newspapers, in speeches, in everyday conversation. Hitler did not invent anti-Semitism. He absorbed it. In Vienna, he encountered racial theories claiming that history was a struggle between superior and inferior races. He listened to politicians who blamed Jews for social change and economic instability. For a young man searching for someone to blame for his failures, these ideas offered something powerful: an explanation. A nation humiliated. Then came World War I. Hitler served as a soldier for Germany. When Germany surrendered in 1918, he experienced the defeat not as a political event, but as a personal betrayal. Germany had not been invaded deeply. The fighting had been mostly outside its borders. To many, the sudden surrender felt confusing. Into that confusion stepped a myth. Germany had not been defeated on the battlefield, but stabbed in the back by enemies within, especially Jews and communists. There was no evidence for this claim, but in a nation devastated by defeat, inflation, and unemployment, facts mattered less than emotion. The Treaty of Versailles imposed heavy reparations and territorial losses on Germany. Hyperinflation in the early 1920s destroyed savings. During the Great Depression, millions were unemployed. People were angry. They were afraid. They wanted someone to hold responsible. Hitler gave them someone, turning prejudice into politics. In 1919, Hitler joined a small nationalist group that would become the Nazi Party. What made him dangerous was not originality, it was delivery. He fused older European anti-Semitism with racial pseudoscience and conspiracy theory. He claimed Jews were not merely a religion, but a biological threat. He accused them of controlling finance, media, and Marxism, contradictory claims, but emotionally effective. In Mein Kampf, he laid out this worldview clearly. Germany could only be reborn if Jews were removed from society. At first, many dismissed him, but then came 1929. The global economic collapse shattered Germany's fragile stability. The Nazis promised jobs, order, pride, and national revival, and they offered a simple solution to complex problems: blame the Jews. In 1933, Hitler was appointed chancellor. Within months, democracy was dismantled. Anti-Semitism was no longer rhetoric, it became law.
Part 3. From Exclusion to Extermination. The persecution did not begin with killing. It began with isolation. Jewish civil servants were dismissed. Jewish businesses were boycotted. The Nuremberg Laws stripped Jews of citizenship and banned intermarriage. Propaganda portrayed Jews as parasites, as disease, as enemies of the nation. Dehumanization is a process. And once a group is seen as less than human, violence becomes easier to justify. In 1938, during Kristallnacht, synagogues burned and Jewish homes were destroyed. Thousands were arrested. Still, mass extermination had not yet begun. That came with war. Part 4. War and the Final Solution. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, millions of Jews came under Nazi control. Ghettos were established, overcrowded, starved, sealed. In 1941, with the invasion of the Soviet Union, mobile killing units began mass shootings of Jewish communities. By 1942, Nazi leadership formalized what they called the final solution. It was bureaucratic language for genocide. Extermination camps such as Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzec, Chelmno, and Majdanek were established in occupied Poland. These were not prisons, they were death factories. Victims arrived by train. Selections were made within minutes. Gas chambers operated with industrial efficiency. Approximately 6 million Jews were murdered, and millions of others, Roma, disabled people, political prisoners, LGBTQI individuals, were also persecuted and killed.
Part 5. Was it only Hitler? It is easy to say one evil man did this, but genocide requires more than one person. It required administrators drafting deportation schedules, engineers designing crematoria, guards enforcing orders, citizens who looked away. Anti-Semitism had existed in Europe for centuries. Hitler weaponized it, organized it, radicalized it. He turned prejudice into policy, fear into fuel, conspiracy into command. Part 6. Aftermath and Memory. When Allied forces liberated the camps in 1945, what they found stunned the world. Starving survivors, mass graves, evidence of systematic murder on a scale never seen before. The Nuremberg trials prosecuted leading Nazi officials, establishing legal precedents for crimes against humanity. But justice could not restore what had been lost. Entire communities were erased, languages silenced, families extinguished. The Holocaust reshaped international law, human rights frameworks, and global politics. Yet its deeper warning remains moral. Conclusion: the real origin. So why did Hitler hate the Jews? Because he believed a racial conspiracy myth. Because he needed a scapegoat for personal and national humiliation. Because he lived in a society where anti-Semitism was already present and politically useful. Because economic crisis made radical answers appealing. Because propaganda can reshape reality. Hatred did not appear overnight. It was built, word by word, speech by speech, law by law. And that is the most unsettling truth of all. The Holocaust was not an eruption of chaos. It was the result of ideas that were tolerated, then normalized, then enforced. Never again is not just a phrase. It is a warning about what happens when fear replaces truth, when prejudice replaces empathy, and when indifference replaces courage. History does not begin with camps. It begins with contempt. And that is where we must remain vigilant. If you found this exploration meaningful, consider subscribing for more in-depth historical stories that examine not only what happened, but how and why it happened. Because understanding the past is not about living in it. It is about recognizing its shadows before they grow again.